The views and opinions expressed on the Craig L. Hayes Show are not necessarily those of Westgate Resorts ownership or management. And now, on with the show.
Extra, extra, read all about it. Get your copies while they last. Stop the presses.
And now for something completely different.
Are you ready for a little truth? Are we not entertained? Wisdom is the proper use of knowledge and experience. There are no safe spaces here. The truth shall make you free. It's showtime! So you want the truth, but can you handle the truth? Well, here's another fine mess you've gotten us into. Now that's entertainment. Enlighten me a little. What you say is quite logical. And what did we learn? Prepare yourself for a little sensory overload. I came here for the truth. 47 years ago, stand by the roll show intro. Roll show intro in 3, 2, 1, go.
This is the Craig L. Hayes Show.
Hello, America, family, friends, and listeners all around this planet we call home. This is the Craig L. Hayes Show, and I am Craig L. Hayes. Today's the if I get this wrong, I'll embarrass myself, I think it's the 23rd of October, 2024, and we're continuing our shows and interviews on entertainment here in Las Vegas, on stages and all around the country, world, wherever it may happen. And we're doing it from the Westgate Resort here in Las Vegas in the International Showroom in Elvis Presley's dressing room when he performed here. And much of the stuff here is still original, and right next door to us is Barry Manilow's private dressing room. So just want to thank again Cammie Christensen, president of this hotel, and Don Rawl, vice president of entertainment and marketing, and John Peer, technical director, for helping me do these shows and allowing me to use this historical site and have a very unique experience, we hope. So today's show is going to be a little bit different. Well, I haven't done one with people that do different than on-stage show business. In our union, Local 720 of IATSE, we do shows, a lot of showroom stuff and lounges and stuff in the hotels, but it's drifted away from that a little bit, and we've gone into more of our union supporting the convention industry. So today we're going to talk to a friend. His name is Tom Porter, and he has been working in the convention area since basically day one, when it really started turning into a convention town instead of just an entertainment capital of the world. So Tom, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you here, and this is going to be a little learning experience for me too, because like we had talked before, I stayed away from the convention stuff. I like doing shows. I've always liked doing the shows in the showrooms, the lounges, and stuff. But we're going to learn a little bit about the convention work, which is very lucrative in this town, and in our union, very lucrative for the members who work that, which is about 90% of our union now works in the convention area of the hotels and convention centers and stuff. So
That's correct.
So Tom, I'd just like to start by saying, first we'd like to get a little bit of background. We'd like to talk to our guests and say, where did you come from, and how did you get to be in the convention center and the convention work and et cetera like that? Just give us a little overview, if you would.
Okay. I was born and raised in Steubenville, Ohio, home of D. Martin. And I spent 18 years there. I went to college, Muskingum College in New Concord for 3 years. After that, I went to join the Air Force. I was in the Air Force for 4 years. And when I was preteen, my dad bought me one of these electronic kits that you would build crystal radios and
okay, yeah.
things like that. And that got me interested in electronics. That got me started. And then through the years, I built Heath kits and Knight kits, stereos and radios, and learned how to solder. And most of that was on my own, just following instructions. And eventually, I started taking. When I got in the Air Force, I was taking correspondence courses in electronics. Back in those days, you actually repaired boards. You went down to component level and you replace resistors and capacitors that were bad. And of course, you don't do that now.
No.
You just at best, you throw away the board. Mostly, you throw away the unit and start over again.
Yeah.
But back in there, you could actually, and I learned to signal trace and all that good stuff. And that's how I got interested in electronics. When I got in the Air Force, they assigned me to radar on F-4s. So that was not quite basic electronics repairing, but pulling modules and troubleshooting on the flight line and everything. So kept my interest going. And after that, I got out in 1970, and I was in Tucson, Arizona, and I eventually got a job in TV repair at Montgomery Ward.
Another brand that doesn't exist anymore. Yeah.
They hired me as a trainee because I had electronics experience and I knew how to use a meter and things, but I just didn't know TV repair. And they trained me in the shop for a couple of weeks. And then once they were comfortable with me, they sent me out on the road and did in-house calls on TV repairs. And it was good training. It was good experience. I did that for a couple of years. And then I got a job a job opened up at Fort Huachuca, civil service job. Department of the Army. They had a job in the cable television section. And most people who worked in Fort Huachuca, they either lived there in Sierra Vista, which was a very small town, or they lived in Tucson and commuted. That was a 150-mile round trip every day. So I got that job, and they hired me basically to repair TVs, but then they were designing and building cable TV systems. And this was in the early 70s, so this is the very beginning of cable TV systems. And I jumped on that like a bandit because I knew that was going to be the future.
Oh, yeah.
So I quickly learned how to design a cable TV system, and I was designing systems. They were building apartment buildings for the soldiers, and I would design the system that went in that and help supervise the installation of it. And that was a great experience.
Yeah.
And about 2 years into that, a job opened in the intelligence school at Fort Huachuca, and they had a TV production facility. They were just starting, and they were making training tapes for the intelligence school. So I applied for that and got into that. And as soon as I got in there, they decided they were going to build a mobile van. Well, I jumped on that one too. I volunteered for that. Didn't know if I was going to get it, so I went out and got my commercial driver's license, because nobody had thought about who was going to drive the truck. So they started building a van, deciding who was going to work in the van. I said, I got a commercial driver's license. I can drive the truck. This is why you're going to have to work on the van then. So I got in that way.
Nice.
It was. And we had a lot of fun with that, doing productions. And that's where I really got going in television production, stayed with it ever since. I came to Las Vegas in 1976 on vacation. A friend of mine lived up here. And I brought resumes with me, and I just went to the yellow pages in a phone book. You could actually do that in those days. And found video production companies, and I would go out and just drop off resumes with them. And I talked to one company, but they said they only hired union. So I said, well, this is a union town. I'm going to have trouble here. Went to another company, and I couldn't even get in to talk to the guy. I couldn't get past the secretary, but I left a resume. Well, I went back home. The next day, this company called me back. Says, we want to fly you back up here and interview you. Turns out that was Global Productions.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And Bill Jameson was heading that at the time. And they flew me back up, and it turns out the equipment they had here was exactly the same equipment I was working on Fort Huachuca with. Same cameras, same tape machines, everything. It was identical. He says, well, you're going to fit right in. They had an opening for a video engineer. At the time, I didn't know what we didn't use those terms before. We didn't know what an engineer was. So they said, we're going to be chief engineer. I said, well, that's a great title.
Yeah. Hopefully the pay matches the
Yeah.
title, you know.
Well, the pay, they outbid my civil service job by 50%. I said,
Bingo.
this is too good.
Yeah.
I can't pass this up. And he said, we'll move you up here. We'll pay all your expenses. Because they own Young and Rue Moving and Storage. They own the moving company.
Yeah.
I can't pass it up. 2 weeks, I was up here. Started working. My boss at the time was Gary Waddell.
Okay.
He was the anchor man at Channel 8 for
Oh,
years
yeah.
and years. And so we started doing that. The first thing, they walked in the door, and Gary says, you're invited to a golf tournament. I said, what do you mean? He says, we got a golf tournament, a Greyhound golf tournament at Black Mountain every year. And they they had a video module, and they would put this in the middle of between the first tee and the first green, and we would record the shots and everything. So that was my first job up here. But Global started a couple years earlier with Billy Graham.
Okay.
You know, not the minister, but the local Billy Graham here. And he designed and built this video module that was basically on a golf cart chassis. And it folded up into a rectangular box. And you would open the sides of the box up, and the switcher would come out, and the doors would open on the side, and it had the tape machines and the audio racks. And it was an amazing thing. I've got pictures of it. But he had designed and built that, and then he left the company. I guess he wanted to go off on his own. So that's why my opening and Gary's opening jobs opened up. So we did that, and we started. He designed this to go on the 26th floor of the MGM up the freight elevators. And we actually had a job on the 26th floor of the MGM, and we went over and take the module over. Wouldn't fit. It was 2 inches too wide. I don't know what happened. But anyhow, we couldn't do it. But that module, you had a hand control, an electric hand control. You could actually walk down the street with this thing, would follow you.
Wow.
It was amazing. This was 76, 77 technology.
Yeah, the stuff that they have today, you know, it can do all that, but it's all, you know, computerized. It's all
Oh, yeah. It's on a,
back then it was all mechanical and whatever it had to be.
Yeah.
Make it amazing. That's cool.
yeah, it was. It was really amazing. They eventually decided that they wanted to be more flexible because mobile television was really starting to pick up in those days. Let me back up a little bit. The convention business, they were just getting into it because as Young and Rue Moving and Storage, they would take the freight in to the conventions. That's what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and they saw all these booths being built. They said, we can do that. So they started a division. I don't know what they called it, but they started a convention building business, and that's where they got the Teamsters involved.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember that we were offered that contract, and we turned it down because it was $1 less than we were making.
Yeah.
And
Good
so-
move on our part. Right?
Yeah, right. And then the Teamsters got it, and then Greyhound bought out Young and Rue and Global Productions, and they maintained those entities, but then now it was Greyhound, and then they would do the convention business. Well, this was before or the very early stages of video projection, and they'd do these conventions, and they wanted to show these speakers on big screens and didn't know how to do it. And the technology wasn't quite there, or not that we could afford it at the time. Mm-hmm. So they come up with the idea, we're going to put a TV set on all the tables out on the floor. And Greyhound bought 60 19-inch Sony TV sets. And we put them on the floor. On each table had one TV set where the delegates sat. And we wired them up with RF modules, use a RF modulator. Because I basically built a cable TV system on a convention floor, is what I did. And we had the union guys come in and wire it all up, just make a bunch of F connectors. And I remember Bill Jameson and I were in the back of the room, and Gary Waddell was up on a thing. He was going to throw the switch to turn it all on. And Bill looked at me and says, if this works, you're going to get a raise. If it doesn't, you're fired. I'm going, oh my God.
Oh,
Gary hit the switch, 59 TVs come on, one didn't. It was a bad connection on the RF cable. I said, thank God.
wow.
So the first convention we used that on was the Steelworkers. And I remember I.W. Abel was running, and a guy named Ed Sedlowski was running against him. And he would out and hang out and run near our video module. I never knew why. Well, it turns out he got mugged in the parking lot because he was running against I.W. Abel. And he was hanging out for us, for security, I guess. But I got to talk to him a little bit. So that was the first one, and we started doing that quite a bit with all the conventions. And that started getting video into the conventions. This is before PowerPoint or anything like that. Now, they were still using the slide projectors. And you know, the multi-stack slide projectors that the UAV Q Masters.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember those? Did you ever work with those?
I never did any of the work with them. I worked at Nevada Audio Visual
Yes.
for a few weeks, just to get familiar with equipment,
Right.
you know. And but I was in the shop working with equipment, but I never went out and I put it all together. You know, it was just checking it, plugging it in, making sure everything worked, and you box it and you put it on the shelf. Boom. You know, that's basically my experience with audio visual stuff for conventions.
Yeah, they do like 3 screens with 27 slide projectors altogether, all synced and running off of a Q-Track. The original Q-Track was paper. That was dangerous. They finally went to plastic.
Yeah.
It was just a key punch track. And then we looked at the time, we looked at video projection, but it was so expensive. That was when the very first GE projectors were out, the PJ5050s. I don't know if you ever heard of those. They were the first ones. They were oil-based. They had a disc of oil, and the electron beam would ride across the oil. And then they project the image. They were about $100,000 a pop. So Greyhound didn't want to spend the money on it. So anyhow, Greyhound eventually got into, Jameson and a couple other guys got into, they wanted to do training films for companies and sort of put the convention business aside. And I was totally against that. And because I think this convention was going to grow. You knew that. But they did that, and it's because of my negative attitude, they let me go, which is the best thing that ever happened to me. So I started freelancing. Oh, before that, because I'd only finished 3 years of school, I went back to school for another year after they let me go, and I finished and got my degree in economics at that point.
Okay.
I started out as a chemistry major, and that didn't work. So I ended up getting a degree in economics. So in 1980, I started freelancing. And there was a company in town called Video Productions in Nevada that started out small. It was Jim Nez and Jim Horkey. Jim Horkey ended up being a big TD down in L.A. And they started Donnie Jacobs. And they started this up, and they had built a little truck. Before I left Greyhound, they decided they wanted to put their equipment in a truck, and I designed and built that one. And then right after we got it built, they sold it to TAV. Trans American Video. So that's when I left. So anyhow, VPN had this small truck, and they would do all the football games all across the West of small state colleges. Laramie, we got a University of Wyoming, University of Colorado, University of Texas in El Paso. We would do their football games, televise them. When UNLV went there, and we broadcast them back here.
Okay.
So, and that was. The VPN road trips were legendary. You get paid $225 a day, $25 per diem, no benefits, and you drive all day to get there, and work the next day, and then drive back the next night, and it was murder. But
yeah.
it was a lot of camaraderie. Got to know a lot of good guys. Got a lot of experience. That's where I learned to do slow-mo. On most of my experience with Greyhound and was with doing maintenance. I maintained all their equipment, all their video machines, their cameras, videotape machines. And this was the first chance I actually got into the operation, in the production, in the show part of it. So I thought I would just walk right into it, but I was lucky. Jim Horkey didn't let me do that. made me start at the beginning wrapping cables and doing utility work and paging behind the handheld camera, which kind of ticked me off at the time, but he was right. I needed to start out gradually because when I got thrown on a tape machine, I was kind of lost being operation, how to do it a show, how to follow cues, how to count down and count your cue rolls in and things like that. So it was good. And it did that about 6 months, and they gradually worked me into doing slow-mo. Dan Lovell helped train me on that, and I'm really grateful for him. He was one of the few guys that would train somebody to do his job. He wasn't afraid of losing his job. He would gladly help train people. Most of the guys, like, as far as engineering goes, the only guy in town, the whole town that helped me was Jack Smith out of Channel 5. He would actually answer questions and tell me things, and if I'd asked some of the other engineers for help, you couldn't get it. They were afraid of losing their jobs. Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a mentality I've never gone along with either. All the years I've been on a stage, it's like, ask me questions, guys.
Yeah.
What do you want to know? I'll teach you. I'll show you. I'll do whatever you want.
I've heard that about you.
Yeah, but I have a little bit of knowledge on these showrooms I can pass on.
Yeah.
And very few people really hit you up for it. It's almost frustrating on that side. It's like, as I was getting ready to retire, I was telling everybody, what do you want to learn? Because once I go out that door,
That's my knowledge.
class
goes
is
with me.
over. Class is over.
That's
come
right.
on. And a couple of them sit there and say, "Well, how do you do this?" And I'd take them, spend the time walking around, climbing over things, up into the high steel, all kinds of stuff, showing stuff. But that was the rarity. It's like I never got that side of it. Mine was always, my belief was always be, if you're good at your job and you stay good at it, what are you worried about teaching people? Make them good. Bring them along with you. Get a good team together. But hey, everybody has their little nuances and their little peculiarities about stuff like that. It's kind of weird here. So we're going to hit a stop right now in just a second here. I shouldn't say right now, and in a second. And for this episode, and then we're going to come back in just a minute and go on to episode number 2 with Tom Porter.
This is the Craig L. Hayes Show.